Money in the Bank What Ifs, the show where we discuss hot takes that may or may not happen at Money in the Bank. I'm Will. That's Brandon. We're the Cousins of Destruction Wrestling Podcast. As always, let's cheers and let's talk about some wrestling.
This is quickly turned into my favorite segment. I've only done it a couple times, but I like it.
Yeah, it's fun to think about what might not happen. Hot takes run through the internet before any PLE, and a lot of big storylines going to this one. So.
Yeah. Not much more to say. I mean,
let's get right into it. I got a few lined up for us today.
Okay.
What I do with these, I kind of go on the internet, see what people are putting out there. Some of these are our takes. Some of these are just stuff that have been floating around the interweb. So we're gonna start with the Cody Rhodes match.
Come.
As we know, Bloodline right now has 4 members: Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton. They're 3 people. What if Cody and them have a 4th partner?
Oh, okay. I would say it's probably going to be Jimmy.
Ooh.
I would go with Jimmy.
Ooh.
I don't think you save that Roman return.
Yeah.
I think you need that maybe SummerSlam.
That's SummerSlam.
I think Jimmy, even though they did a John Cena, I guess, return, what was that, 2 years ago now? Something like
2
that.
years of Money in the Bank.
So Jimmy coming back, I think, would be good. He fits right in. You could kind of start getting the bloodlines mixed together within each other because you kind of start needing to push that if you're doing Survivor Series.
Yeah.
I guess I'm here for it. I still think that Cody's team would take the loss.
Yes.
If they did a 4v4 and it was Jay, I would book him to get the pin, to take the pin.
Yeah, that's exactly the guy I had in mind too, Jimmy.
Jimmy, yeah. Why'd I say Jay? Jimmy, yeah.
A Jimmy return would just be absolutely perfect for this because we are now officially in the post Paul Heyman era with the Bloodline 2.0. So they are officially their own faction, the bad guy faction of the Bloodline. We are going to have to start working toward whatever that Civil War is now. And this would be a great way to dip our toe into the Civil War. It would be the small spark that might start the big fire that hopefully rises at SummerSlam when we get the Tribal Chief returning because we miss our Tribal Chief so much.
We do, and I think it'd be kind of an interesting thing. Jimmy comes back, and you look at Jimmy's kind of bloodline stuff. Like, he was always really faithful, but at the same time, Jimmy was always kind of like the hothead, and like maybe this new bloodline tries to like recruit him back potentially. You could do that, and then you could slowly start introducing more people back into Roman's bloodline, I guess.
Yeah, should be good though. Another one. We've been talking about, most of the internet is kind of in agreement on Braun Breaker's not winning this weekend, right? We're going to go into SummerSlam with it. But what if Braun wins on his first try and beats Sami?
Well, I guess you have him fight Sheamus then. Well, I guess. I don't know. I guess I really haven't thought that far ahead.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a what if because I don't really see that happening. But
this what if would be more to me of the question of like, what if Braun wins on the first try? That wouldn't be like a what does Braun do next? It would be a what is Sami going to do next type of like SummerSlam's right around the corner type deal.
Yeah.
Because you don't have any storyline at all surrounding him, unless maybe Sami unless Gable gets the Creed brothers at Money in the Bank. Maybe they come out and try to help him. Who knows? And then Sami can kind of go with the Alpha Academy and rekindle that fire, and they do a 3v3 there. So it just doesn't feel right for him to win at Money in the Bank for this reason of there's no storyline for either of these guys right now if Braun just goes ahead and takes his belt.
Yeah, I think that's a great thought, that 3v3. I think the other thought is if Braun does it, Braun has a history of kicking people out of action. So maybe you have Sami go away for a little bit. And then we just talked about the bloodline stuff. So you look ahead, and then Sami comes back and evens the odds for the bloodline.
Yep.
As much as he's not really in the bloodline, like he is like a de facto member, obviously, as we all saw and how great that was. And not a big Sami Zayn fan, but even if he comes back and helps Roman out, even though he turned his back on him. So we'll see.
Yeah.
There's also that.
Yeah.
Talk about turning their backs. You can talk about Howdy potentially.
A lot of stuff.
Turned on Roman, even though it's for the good and blah, blah, blah,
Hey, yeah, I'm with you.
Who knows?
Who knows?
He's probably the most like what happens next, because there is no direction for
Yeah,
Zayn.
there is none.
There's
None.
eventually, whether it's Money in the Bank or SummerSlam, he's dropping the belt.
Right.
What do you do?
Yeah. Yeah.
No clue.
You sing his intro. All right. We'll move on to the next one. We got a big what if here. What if Tiffany Stratton or Chelsea Green do not win the Money in the Bank here?
Oh, I was not ready for this.
Those have to be the two favorites, right?
Yeah.
They have to be. Or probably right behind Chelsea Green would probably be Naomi, and then maybe Illyria Valkyria, and then the rest are kind of just a no-go, right? Io's not going to come back and win this given the damage control stuff. I don't see Zoe Stark winning the Money in the Bank. Sorry. So if Tiffany or Green does not win and they do hand it off to one of these girls, then we're not getting a cash in anytime soon, for one, because you have to, any of those other women need time to develop into any sort of main level star. I mean, Lyra's been the closest, probably, in my point of view, at tapping into the main event scene because she is that good in the ring.
Yeah.
But character wise, she's still waiting on it. So I just think this is the prime moment to give a star like Tiffany Stratton the case, or star like Chelsea Green. I think those are the only two options, and it would just be mind blowing if they didn't go with them.
Yeah, I completely agree, 100%. I will say, given what we've seen on TV, I think Io might be the third favorite.
Really?
Which is kind of an interesting thing, because I just go back to the damage control needs to change type thing.
Yeah.
You have Dakota Kai in damage control as well. We've seen it before where somebody has the briefcase and they think, oh, I won this briefcase. Somebody challenges them for the briefcase.
Yeah.
And maybe somehow, some way, that's like a quirky long road to get to Dakota Kai beating Io for the briefcase.
The only reason I'd push back on that is that we just did a year of damage control having the belt and that kind of being a thing. So I don't, it's not as much of a change. Like even if it does end in the one and only Dakota Kai getting the Money in the Bank, it would just be the same thing told in a different context with them.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think if you do it that way, you can at least, she says there's time for a change, but we haven't seen a change. There has been no change. So you could have Dakota get the briefcase off of her, and then Dakota goes her own way, and then you can introduce people into damage control then, and then it's a change. But that's a really long-winded, like, they could do this and this and this and this and this, because I, like you said, I think those
and
two
even
are front runners.
It's even more long-winded because when you would be trying to do this, you also took away the chance for Tiffany Stratton and Chelsea Green to get the Money in the Bank. And so you'd have to make this long-winded effort to make it seem like that was the right decision. And with the way damage control is right now, people just aren't invested enough for that to ever be a thing.
No, and you look at the women's champions. I mean, Liv's holding that belt until Rhea comes back. So whoever's getting cashed in.
It's not Raw.
That's not going to be anytime soon.
That's also what I'm thinking, is that it's not Raw.
Yeah, it's not going to be anytime soon.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a SmackDown.
Yeah.
And both of them are on SmackDown.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Moving on to my boy, Damian. So we've discussed the idea. Obviously, we did on our Raw Popper Drop that this week they finally planted the seeds of Finn Balor and stuff. But there's also just a whole bunch of hoopla hopping in the Judgment Day with Liv Morgan and you always have the Braun Strowman. The Judgment Day is always running around causing issues, right?
Yeah.
So it might not be just Finn, but what if Judgment Day ends up screwing Damian Priest in this match?
Yeah, I think that's a really strong chance.
Yeah.
More than I would probably like to admit.
It would be, I mean, for story-wise, it'd be easy for Damian's gentleman's bet punishment if that happened. Because he'd just be like, you know what? Yeah, I'll leave the Judgment Day then.
Yeah, and we've seen rumors about him getting kicked out of Judgment Day back when he had the briefcase.
Since Mania,
yeah. It was supposed to be like a failed cash-in, was what we had always heard. So they're doing some really good stuff with Finn. I like what they're doing with Finn. I think that's a really strong possibility. I don't want it to happen, but then it just begs the question of what happens with Judgment Day then, I guess. I guess Liv's the de facto leader at that point.
That's my thing, is that when this what if gets brought up, Liv Morgan is more involved in the Judgment Day than I think most people think. And she also doesn't have a match on this card, but she's also probably the most over woman in the company. and it's a international crowd. They're gonna want to see her. I could see Finn, Dom, Liv running out there during this match with some sort of story. This and that, and this happens, and bada bing, bada boom. Seth Rollins is facing Gunther at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I think you look at it. It might not be Finn. It might be
Right.
It might be Liv and Dom come
Right.
out, and then Liv costs Damian, and then you have Damian mad at Liv, and then you have Dom and Finn stand up for Liv.
And Damian gets pissed at Liv and is like, you know what, Mommy's coming back next week. Like he phones her up. You're getting back here. Like,
yeah, and then you have Damian and Rhea on one side versus the rest of Judgment Day on the other side.
You know what? That sounds pretty good.
Sounds pretty good. I'm not.
That doesn't sound bad, man. What if this might be a dope take?
The 1 out of 9 is not bad.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna shift our focus. A couple what ifs to finish it off, focusing on the final match of the night, hopefully, or maybe the first. I don't know, the biggest match of the night, the Money in the Bank match, right? It's happened before, so people are asking. CM Punk is dead at home, right? He can't move. But someone needs to screw Drew out of that Money in the Bank. What if AJ Lee makes her return and screws Drew McIntyre out of the Money in the Bank?
Yeah, her or Larry, Larry would be the most over.
That's an ugly ass dog. Have you seen? I didn't realize what he was. Since they shouted out Larry, his pictures have been on the internet.
Yeah,
I'm like, ugh. Yeah. I'm still with you, Larry, but
yeah. It's a tough scene. If AJ Lee comes back, I mean, that's gonna blow the roof off that place. I mean, that's gonna be crazy. You set it up and you have her be like maybe a mouthpiece, but you can have her kind of cut some promos on Drew on Punk's behalf while Punk still rests up. You can kind of still really build that rivalry. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah, I mean, AJ Lee coming back has been ever since CM Punk stepped back into a ring, even at AEW. I was like, oh, please, AJ, follow in suit. Like, people forget she was the woman right before the women's revolution began, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and she was the one who kind of handed the torch because she did the job for Paige the day after Mania 31 or something. I don't know, but I mean, she carried the women's division for a while in terms of the standard of where the women are at wrestling now. Yeah. Like, she was really one of the first that was this level back then.
Yeah, because there was like a weird period where you needed a transition, and her and the Bellas, honestly, were like the top 3, kind of like that bridge that gap a little bit. It's been forever since we've seen her, like you just said, and I think everybody would freak out.
I mean, she's been in pictures with Punk over the years, and she's been keeping in shape, and she's done in-ring stuff for movies that were filmed and stuff like that. So knock the rust off and get in the ring, AJ. It'd be amazing.
I know her and Punk train together, obviously. So she's been, like you said, keeping in shape, and you don't need a whole lot from her. But
no,
that would take the rivalry to the next level. I don't even know how you could. I mean, that'd be the only way to. Yeah. Like, this rivalry's so good right now, you could just do a little bit more. And it would be nice because then you have a different dynamic of, it's always Punk screwing Drew over. Yeah. Well, it's just a little bit different now. Same thing, but a little bit different.
Right. Yeah. I think it'd be so cool. It'd be so cool. Two more. You got to bring them up. What if Howdy shows up in this Money in the Bank? What's he going to be doing? I think that I think that Jey Uso is more involved with the Howdy thing than people think. I know that the arguments are happening this week because Howdy announced that he's going after people who have done their family wrong. And while Jey did do his family wrong, it was for the right reasons. And we all know that's true. But I just think that apart from Chad, Jay's the only one who's kind of mentioned the name. He's the only one who's been around the scene a little bit. I just think that he's more into this than people think. And if Howdy shows up, I think he's screwing Chad and Jay out of this.
Yeah, I think there's a really good probability of Howdy showing up some way, somehow. Whether it's just a light flicker, or maybe it's just the piano playing, or maybe we get to see Howdy. Some way, somehow, something I think is going to happen. Now, I would agree that I think Jay is more involved in Howdy stuff than people want to say.
Yeah.
Not only that, you did say he did the right thing, but he wronged his family. But we all view it as the right thing.
Yeah.
Howdy obviously has a couple screws loose, which you can tell by the interviews.
Right.
So he's not going to take it that way.
Yes.
And after every time we've seen Jay on screen, we've seen Howdy.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a coincidence.
Yeah.
I think maybe they're using Chad Gable as like a cover up to maybe get the Jay. I think maybe that's what. I could honestly see them. Chad's climbing up this way and Jay's climbing up this way. They're both climbing up the ladder at the same time. And they're both like reaching for the briefcase. And then boom. And then maybe they're both off the ladder.
What if the briefcase like blows up in that moment or something? It'd be sick.
Like they just like lights go out.
Yeah.
You hear a couple piano clicks or
Doom.
taps or whatever.
Doom.
And then
Doom.
they come back on and they're both on the mat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So something like that. I think it's more of a probability than people think. But then that brings the question up of, well, who do you have winning the match?
Right.
Because those are two of the favorites.
Right.
So
last what if before we take off here is that with all of the discussion surrounding Money in the Bank storylines, and we all think it's going to be run in galore between, like we just said, Howdy, Logan Paul, CM Punk, AJ Lee, all this stuff that may happen. What if there are no run-ins and this ends up being a clean Money in the Bank match? Who wins?
I think if it's a clean match, I think it's probably Jay.
Yeah.
It makes it really tough because we think it is going to be Jay, but I also don't think it's going to be a clean match. I think if it's a clean match, they really miss their chance to progress multiple storylines.
Yeah, it's just hard to do, but the argument is it's going to be really hard to fit so many storylines into it. I mean, we can do this match an hour, fine by me, but like that's just a hard thing to do. So I think we probably just get one run in.
I don't think it's gonna be 2 or 3.
Yeah, and
I think it's either gonna be like a Logan Paul thing or maybe AJ or Howdy.
Of
some sort.
Yeah, but yeah, if it ends up being a clean match, then give it to the most over guy in the entire business and the entire wrestling stratosphere, Jey Uso right now. Yay.
Yeah, and there might even be 2. Like you might have an early one from Logan Paul that takes out LA Knight.
Logan Paul can just swoop on in with brass knuckles and punch him.
Yeah. Something simple, something quick.
Yeah.
But then it's just like, what else is going to happen? What else is going to happen?
He pours some prime on the ground and LA Knight does like a Looney Tunes slip. That'd be funny. I'd be down. Anyway, with that shitty joke, those are our what ifs for Money in the Bank. Let us know in the comments what you think is going to happen this Saturday, and be watching out on Monday for our Money in the Bank review.
Yes.
Hell yeah. Other than that, follow us on all of our socials at codwrestlepod, COD WrestlePod, and listen to us wherever you get your podcasts at Spotify, Apple, etc. And share us with anybody who you may think like this content. Other than that, I'm Will. That's Brandon with the Cousins of Destruction Wrestling Podcast. We will see you next time.